Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Thanks so much for joining with us. Well, President Biden's challenge, make my day, pal, and then Donald Trump's response, let's get ready to rumble. Well, this isn't the WWE. We're talking about a national televised presidential debate.
The top two contenders are now set to make history with the earliest presidential debates ever. And they come with a few strings attached, as Charlene Aaron reports.
The first debate between President Biden and former President Trump is set for June 27th on CNN, with a second to follow on ABC in September, the earliest general election presidential debates in U.S. history. Trump has been challenging Biden for months.
I'm trying to get him to debate.
The president responding Wednesday.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice.
Trump responding on social media, just tell me when. I'll be there. Let's get ready to rumble. The debates will be televised, but include departures from traditional formats like no live audience, limited news outlets, and muting a candidate's mic after speaking. The first debate in June comes before either candidate is officially nominated by their party.
Early voting is now so prevalent, almost half the country is voting before Election Day. And there were concerns that the debates, if they're backloaded in October, are missing tens of millions of Americans who might be making up their mind.
On CBN's Faith Nation, Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections, said the haggling over details might derail these debates.
I'm a little skeptical that it's all a done deal, right? It just all seems a little bit too easy.
He also shared expectations heading into the contests.
From the Trump campaign, you see someone who is anxious to debate someone who they think is not up for the job and physically unable to debate or hold the job of president. And from the Biden campaign, I think you see an opportunity. They see an opportunity to show that he is up for the job.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Well, it's likely to get huge ratings, but at the same time, is this how our national policy is going to be decided, with two people trying to sort of outgun each other? Make my day, pal, let's get ready to rumble. What we need is a real earnest debate about policies going forward so that the people can choose, not based on, which candidate they think has more testosterone, but which candidate is best to run the country. I'm worried about this election. It's one of the most unusual ones in my lifetime. And I keep going back to the famous quote from Jon Stewart, the comedian who does a comedy news show. And in it, he said, this is antique roadshow. Are either candidate up for the task of leading the country for 4 years? And you and I get to decide that, but unfortunately, it seems like they're the only game in town. Well, in other news, renewed fighting in northern Gaza is fueling a dispute within Israel's war cabinet. Gary Lane has that story and more from the CBN newsroom. Gary?
Gordon, the IDF is fighting Hamas in areas of Gaza that it cleared out months ago. As the terror group reforms, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is sparring with his defense minister over the future of Gaza. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has more.
As the fighting intensifies in central and northern Gaza, a friendly fire incident near the Jabalia refugee camp left 5 Israeli soldiers dead and 7 more wounded. The renewed fighting as Hamas regroups in areas once cleared by the IDF is fueling internal disagreements over ruling Gaza after the war is over. Israel's defense minister is blaming Netanyahu because he hasn't helped other Gazans take control.
I call on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to make a decision and declare that Israel will not rule over civilian affairs in Gaza. There won't be Israeli military rule in Gaza, and an alternative leadership to Hamas in the Gaza Strip will be advanced immediately.
Netanyahu says no Palestinian leaders will step up to govern until Hamas is wiped out.
Until it is clear that Hamas does not control Gaza militarily, no party will be willing to take over the civilian management of Gaza for fear of its safety. Therefore, the talk about the day after, when Hamas remains intact, will remain just talk, empty of content.
The U.S. Secretary of State again demanded Israel come up with a day-after plan. The U.S. is pushing for a two-state solution with the Palestinian Authority in charge. But Netanyahu says the PA is unacceptable because it supports, funds, and educates for terror.
The non-Hamas civilian administration there with an Israeli military responsibility, overall military responsibility, that's the only thing that would work. But there's one precondition. You know, the day after Hamas is the day after Hamas. The day after Hamas is destroyed. You can't have it both ways.
Meanwhile, the International Court of Justice begins hearings today on South Africa's request to stop Israel's offensive against Hamas battalions in Rafah. Egypt, the first Arab country to sign a peace treaty with Israel, is now joining that effort. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And here at home, parts of the South are bracing for more heavy rain today and tomorrow, raising the risk of dangerous flooding. Some areas have already seen 20 to 30 inches of rainfall in recent weeks. It's been a record year of rainfall on the Gulf Coast. Several cities have recorded more than half a foot more than typical for this time of year. 2024 is also bringing more tornadoes than usual. Approximately 700 preliminary tornado reports have been filed through May 9th, and that's well above the historical average of 549. Well, you might have already heard the whiny buzzing sound all around you. In parts of the United States, cicadas are emerging from their 17-year wait underground. They're making their presence known. CBN correspondent Paul Petit takes us inside the world of this noisy insect. He tells us why this year's appearance is a historic event.
You may not always see them, but you can certainly hear them.
We're about to see billions of insects known as cicadas, commonly referred to as periodical cicadas because they only come out periodically every 13 or 17 years, depending on what broods you're talking about.
17 states from northwest Louisiana up through Illinois and portions of the southeast will experience what some are calling cicada-geddon. Entomologists expect the harmless but noisy insects to emerge from the ground to feed and mate during May and June.
When soil temperatures hit about 64 degrees 6 inches down on the year of an emergence, that's when they all know that's their cue to start coming out of the ground.
2024 will welcome 2 broods of cicadas, classified as 19 and 13. Certain northern states will see both, pushing the total cicada population into the trillions, something that hasn't happened since 1803.
There are a few overlapping counties there in Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, where you may see both of those emergences coming out at once, and you may have twice as many periodical cicadas.
And when it comes to the noise level of cicadas, this will give you a pretty good idea. Yeah, in full throttle, cicadas could actually be 10 decibels louder than a police siren. In fact, in one South Carolina county, officials had to tell residents to stop calling 911, reporting that alarms were going off.
Males are the only ones that make the noise, and they move into calling areas. They want to all be as loud as possible to draw in those ladies from as far out as they can.
For more insight to this rare occurrence, we turn to the author of God and the World of Insects.
The perceived conflict between science and the Bible was something that I just wanted to help bridge a gap, particularly in my field in entomology.
Josh Shoemaker, entomologist and biblical scholar, enjoys where the two fields intersect.
If you look at the covenant that God made with Noah, in that covenant, he says he's making it with Noah, but it says he's also making it with all the creatures of the earth. And so to me, when I look at that passage, it shows me that the insects are also something that's important to God.
While cicadas are often referred to as locusts, they are actually 2 different species. Some of the Jewish community liken the noise cicadas make to a song of liberation, much like the sound from Miriam's tambourine as she led the Hebrew women in worship after crossing the Red Sea.
Here we have these cicadas. They really have been trapped for 17 years. You know, they were in their own Egypt. They were in their own exile. They were under the ground. You know, they were in these tunnels, you know, held hostage by the ground. And when they come out, don't look at it that they are making your life miserable. Look at it that they are singing to you. There's a message. There's a liberation.
Rabbi Afzon writes for the American Israelite, a Jewish newspaper in Cincinnati. His monthly column is titled Lessons for Life from Life. He believes everything we see and hear is ordained from God for a purpose, even the noise or singing from a cicada.
And that's really how we have to live our life. We have to be singing God's praises.
Paul Petit, CBN News.
Terry, insectologists say that cicadas are high in protein, higher than eggs and pork. You ready for a snack?
You go ahead, Gary. I'll follow. You start. Wow.